We're charging right along here in episode 278 of Catfish on Ice. One more time of getting a good night's rest, and then it's the season opener for the Nashville Predators. And we got the crew together. The full crew is here to wrap up episode 278. This is the live segment of the episode. We've already had an interview with Mark Shag of the Hockey Writers, who covers the Blue Jackets. Thank you so much to Mark for jumping in on Catfish on Ice and giving us a lot of knowledge about the Blue Jackets in this matchup. And if you haven't watched it, you can also watch it on YouTube as well if you're watching us live right now. So we got Max Greenberg and Boyd Ferris joining us tonight. So we got the full crew. Here's what we're going to get into here with the live portion. We're going to talk more about the Blue Jackets matchup. I think it's a fun matchup.
Yeah.
I like the Blue Jackets. They're kind of like my little team that I like to cheer for in the East, just kind of off at a distance. And that was even before the obvious tragic thing that happened with Johnny Gaudreau. That just amplified it times 1,000 that I want to cheer for him. But even before that, I've always thought like the Blue Jackets are kind of a fun sister team to cheer for because they're out East. We don't play them very often. But this should be a fun matchup. So we're going to get into that. Some of the players we should watch out for in that matchup. And just honestly, how big of a need do we have, guys, to get off to a good start this year? I mean, you're not going to make the playoffs in game 1 of 82, but man, do you need a good start this year? So we're going to talk about that. I want to scan through some preseason power rankings among all the popular websites that are out there. Daily Faceoff, ESPN, all those are out there with their power rankings, and none of them have faith in the Predators. I'm totally okay with that. Doubt us. Please doubt us.
Right.
I want them to rank us last, honestly, but we always got the Blackhawks. They keep us from being dead last in the power rankings, but I want to get the guys' thoughts on how they feel. Is that fair where the teams are, where they're putting the Predators? Should they be a little higher? Let's try to remove our bias. Really, we're going to talk about the opening night roster that's now set. And it's Brady Martin got everybody buzzing right now because he did it. He did it. And how many episodes was it ago, Max? And I didn't predict it, so I'm not going to give myself
It was back in July
credit.
when you first brought it up.
But I didn't predict it, so I'm not going to give myself.
I'll predict it.
But I was really a proponent of it. Max can back me up on it.
And hey, let me say I said be cautious. I didn't say either. It cannot happen.
No, I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying you were against it either. We both kind of came around to it's probably not going to happen. So that's why I'm saying I didn't predict it, but I was a very much a proponent of it. But also I want to clear something up.
Well, and let's be fair, from the 2025 draft, only 5 players actually made opening night rosters. So
yeah, it's very rare. It's very rare for a draft pick.
Yeah.
Even a top 5 draft pick.
I'm surprised it was even that many, to be honest.
Yeah,
it's very rare. It's nothing like the other major sports where you just go right in. Normally, even the most talented of prospects need a year at least before they, or at least right out of training camp, they don't normally get called up. But I also want to ask Boyd. We're going to open up this episode because I admitted that I was a little confused on this because this kind of thing doesn't happen very often. So you get the opening night roster, and Luke Evangelista does have his deal. Oh, we kind of got to talk about that a little bit at least, guys, because we have not recorded together since that was finally settled. But before we actually all go around the room and maybe talk about everything that happened there in terms of do we like the deal? What does it look like? I want to get Boyd to clear something up. He cleared it up for me, and I'm sure there's others like me who weren't sure about why Luke Evangelista is listed as non-roster right now. So
I don't really understand it either.
Yeah, Boyd, take the floor.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's really not that different from any other professional in any other industry. If you are a resident of one country and you take a job in another country, you have to get visa clearance to go live there and do that job. So, Luke Evangelista is Canadian. He is coming to work for an American-based franchise or, an American-based company, if you will. So as a result, he has to get visa clearance. And until his contract was signed, you can't initiate that process. So usually it clears up in a few days. It's typically not a long process, but that that combined with, he's only had, effectively 1 day of practice. He wasn't going to play tomorrow night anyway. But him effectively being non-roster due to immigration, it'll keep him out of games for, probably a few more days. My guess is he'll make the road trip, ironically, back to Canada. And, he'll probably start to see some ice time on that Canadian road trip.
All right. Thanks for clearing that up for us. And also, just to talk about the deal itself, we went through all that. We went through all that drama for them to come together on a deal that honestly should have been very clear cut.
Right.
2-year deal, which, I mean, me and Boyd did an episode a couple episodes ago talking about this, and we thought that 2 years didn't make a whole lot of sense. I was always more about the 3-year deal. But either way, we'll never know the exact details but it came down to money at the end, which was crazy because we never thought it was necessarily going to be about the money. But there was a lot of conflicting reports out there. Some were saying the Preds front office initially threw a lowball offer of $1 million per year. I really hope that's not true because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
it was pretty quickly refuted by Elliot Friedman.
Yes, I saw that as well. When I saw that, I was like, I cannot. And there's always, you got to watch out for the clickbait. You got to watch out for all that stuff. But, it's 2 years, $3 million AAV. Ultimately, I wish it wouldn't have taken this long for it to get that to this point. But I do think it's a fair deal for both sides. And now Evangelista gets to bet on himself. He gets to prove himself, and the Preds can hopefully reap the benefits of it. Either way, if Evangelista just completely takes off and just outperforms the $3 million AAV, then the money's in there, the ball's in their court on what they want to do, offer him in a trade down the road or offer him the long-term big boy money. Either way, that's what you're looking at in those 2 years. Max, let's get you in here. How do you feel about the deal, man? Do you like the deal? And how are you feeling about Evangelista now that this is finally settled?
Well, first of all, I'm very relieved it's finally over. It's finally done. We don't have to deal with this distraction as the regular season begins. We can just move forward knowing it's a done deal, and that's that. I did initially see the report of the, 2 years, $1 million per year, if that came out. And I was one of those guys who kind of took the bait on it. I kind of believe there was a possibility of it. Just based on how obviously the guy is still early in his GM career, but based on how things have gone with Barry Trott's kind of tumultuous so far, I really didn't put it past him that it could be. But like Boyd said, Elliot Friedman was quick to refute that notion that it was more like a 2-year, $2 million per year deal, which still is low. But again, you start low in these negotiations, then you go up. And the Preds and Evangelista eventually found a middle ground. If anything, I'm just confused as to why it took so long. Like you said, Chad, it seems like a very, it seems like a very fair deal for both sides that could have easily been reached months ago. I don't know what the holdup was, and we'll really never know at this point. But once again, it's over now. And I did see, and of course, you never know just by a player's social media, but Evangelista was posting on his Instagram that he was happy about the contract, happy it was done. He's like glad to be back home. He even commented on a Preds post about the contract saying "Missed you, Predsman," which was pretty funny. Yeah. So ultimately, it seems like he's happy the deal's done. I hope there's not any I hope there's not any leftover sort of fallout or hurt feelings from either side on why it took so long, and no one's going to know who what's to blame, and maybe blame's the wrong word in the situation. Either way, again, if you want my one word I have to describe about how I feel about this whole thing, it's probably just confused, but also just glad it's done.
Yeah, and also real quick, I want to mention too, now I just to move past it, now I just wonder if Evangelista can quickly turn the page, move past that, and now it's all about are the Predators finally going to kind of fully invest in Evangelista being a full-time top 6 player? Because I feel like that's really where you got to see him if you want him to prove that he was worth all of that negotiation. Then that's where you got to put him. And you're seeing him rotate in and out in practice lines on the second line, kind of where I always thought he would end up being on that second line with Svechkov and Stamkos. Seems like the best place for him. But now you've got Joakim Kimmel, who's also saying, hey, don't forget about me. I'm here as well. So it's going to be interesting to see like kind of where they initially slot him. But Boyd, sigh of relief, obviously. But how are you feeling about Evangelista's stock right now and the deal itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple interesting things to consider. I mean, we three talked about it earlier in the summer. I mean, the shorter deal makes sense for both sides. I think we all agreed that 3 probably made the most sense because it gets him to his UFA years. So the fact that he will still be an RFA at the end of the contract is interesting. But, you know, it at least puts the scenario in place where if after 2 years or after a year and change, it's just not quite working out, you know, it's an easy enough thing to move on from. Or in the best case, he reaches his full potential and you're paying a highly productive forward in his prime. You know, there's much worse things than to have that. But I think what's also really interesting is that this contract holdout or standoff, I guess would probably be a better word, is it opened the door. I mean, you know, Joakim Kimmel had a phenomenal preseason, you know, obviously capped off by the hit of the century. And
definitely.
And, you know, you look at a guy like Matthew Wood, who probably would have had an opportunity to compete for that spot, took that opportunity and ran with it. I mean, obviously the injury is unfortunate, but he's still in that mix. You know, whether or not Brady Martin last pass, you know, makes it past kind of the 9-game mark is a little bit to be determined. But, you know, in where we would have thought, and as we discussed, you know, Evangelista would have been pretty much a lock for a top 6 role. All of a sudden, there's some of these other guys that are they are coming gunning for it, and he's going to have to show up and probably, you know, really try to be productive pretty early to put a stamp on kind of where his role should be in that lineup.
First of all, that pick right there goes so hard. I don't care if it's preseason. I don't want to hear it. I don't care if that happened. I don't care if that happened in the local gymnasium somewhere and no one was watching. That hit goes so hard. I mean, the dude, Svechkov, is literally horizontal, parallel to the ice. And it was a total legal hit. You can't go skating with your head down. I don't even know where he
landed
was going.
What, 20 feet away?
Well, that was actually the best part of the hit. That's like hit stick when you're playing video games. Like you see that happens too easily in the video games, but it happens in real life. And I mean, obviously, we're all glad that the player is okay. I mean, we don't want to see anyone get hurt, but that was a brutal hit. And I mean, everyone's asking, like, what was he thinking just with his head down, skating? He like does like a beeline towards mid ice, and there's Kimmel just like, yeah, I'm going to lay you out. And that's something we're forgetting about. Some of us are forgetting about Kimmel is not only does he have the power play skills, does he have the snipe ability, but this dude plays with an edge. He likes to hit people. He's perfect for the old school Preds mentality that we miss and we want back. And it's going to be really hard, as Boyd just said, to keep this guy out. And you're looking at how they're going to juggle all this. Andrew Burnett's got it's a good problem to have, but at the same time, you're also dealing with a lot of inexperience. So there are going to be a lot of rookie mistakes. There are going to be some things that happen, and you hope fans are willing to be patient when it comes to that. But yeah, so we get the Evangelista deal. I'm happy it's over with. We can retire that weekly segment on Catfish on Ice of what's going on with Evangelista. I'm so glad. Now, hopefully, that the weekly segment of Evangelista is that the dude's scoring goals every week. That's the weekly segment I would like to have about Evangelista. But either way, happy about that. Let's get more into the opening night roster, gentlemen. And any major surprises, I'll go first. Not really any major surprises. Obviously Brady Martin's the big one, but other than him, I guess I should say. I'm really happy for Spencer Stastny. Let's talk about Spencer Stastny. I mean, you're talking about a guy who considered retiring. Like he had the papers ready to go. And you want to talk about, like, I'm getting chills just think about it, but you want to talk about mental health and how important that is. And how I remember we talked about it on this podcast when he went on the 32 Thoughts podcast. Shout out to Elliot Friedman and the 32 Thoughts podcast for putting Stastny on that platform. They didn't have to do that. Stastny's not a household name, but they put him on there to talk about something so important and impact so many people. And now you look at the guy, he deserves to be on this roster. And we all know how talented Spencer Stastny is. And I'm happy to see him in what is a very crowded defensive bench, as Boyd has mentioned many times and Max has mentioned many times. We have a very good, deep bench for defense when it comes to NHL capable defensemen, and Stastny went out there in training camp and made this roster, and I think he's probably going to start opening night. Do you guys expect that?
I think so.
Yeah,
and even if he's
he'll
not,
he'll be on the third pair with Justin Barron.
Yep.
You think? Oh, have they already confirmed that? Do we already kind of know that for sure?
I mean, that's the pairs they've been running the last few days.
Over Blankenberg.
See, my boy.
It's
make it.
Hey, he at least made the roster, but it'll be Willsby and Yossi, which, man, what a great camp Adam Willsby had. It'll be Shea and Perbix in the second pair, and Stastny and Barron as the third pair.
And then you have Blankenberg, who's the scratch, and Haig, who's injured
on IR.
And then Molendyk is in Milwaukee. So that's everyone who's in the
also. Let's also mention with Haig as well. I mean, he is he was initially considered like at least a month out. That was when it first happened. So we're looking at probably at least 2 or 3 more weeks.
2 to 4 more weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
And then when he comes,
roughly the end of October.
We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but when he's back in the mix, that could bring up another really difficult decision. You might have to waive somebody. We'll see who, because both Stastny and Blankenberg have to clear waivers. So
yes.
I'm just calling it out, guys. I can see down the road, they're going to have to make a tough decision and hope. You don't want to lose any of those guys. I'm being dead honest here, but I mean, it could be very difficult for either Blankenberg or Stastny to clear waivers. I really could see both.
Yeah,
of them
I agree.
Yeah.
You could honestly maybe get it. I mean, if you're lucky, maybe you could trade him for a draft pick of some sort.
I would say most likely what they can probably do. I'm pretty sure Ozzy Weissblatt is still waivers exempt. So if they had to in a pinch,
he's not.
He's not anymore.
No, he's not. That was one of the ones that I had to confirm on. Ozzy Weissblatt is not waivers exempt. I'll pull it up on Puckpedia as well.
Okay.
He's on a 2-way contract, but he is not waivers exempt.
Okay. Because that was the other thing that I was thinking was be able to send him down, and they could even put Tyson Jost on waivers if they needed to, and just carry 8 defense.
Yeah, which could happen as well. But I was just double checking it. He is eligible for waivers according to Puckpedia.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I could kind of on that note, I could see a lot, especially this year, the Preds rolling the 11 forwards, 7 defensemen.
I mean, either way, it's going to be a tough call.
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I was looking at their roster for an article I put out today, and the opening night roster has, I think, 6 players under the age of 23, and there's another 5 or 6 that could that are in Milwaukee that could realistically see NHL time this year. So, I mean, it's when Barry Trotz yesterday on the radio said, we're not in a rebuild, we're in a build. I mean, I kind of get it. Like how much more do you need?
We got our old friend Rich Howe commenting on Facebook, the original co-host with myself of Catfish On Ice back in the days when we were, I mean, we sounded like we were recording out of a tin can with the world ending around us. That's how bad the audio was. That's how bad my camera was. And Rich Howe, that dude stuck with me, and we had some fun times. We had some of the most dumb, cheesy segments you've ever heard of, but we had fun. And hey, Rich, I miss you, man. If you're still watching right now, I put your comment up a little late. Oh, there he is. So he says,
What's
I
up,
know
Rich?
you boys aren't. He is a closet. Well, he's not closet.
No, he's not closet.
He's very proud of it.
Yeah.
But he says, I know you boys aren't watching the Boston game.
I have it on the TV in front of me.
He says Victor Arvidsson, old RV. We always love RV. Victor Arvidsson is buzzing. And he says, miss you, boys. We miss you too, Rich. We love you, man. And thank you for giving us a shout out. Hope you're doing well up in there in old Kentucky, north of the border, as I used to call it when I lived in Nashville. I used to always say, man, we got to go north of the border. We got to go up, not to Canada. We got to go to Kentucky.
Right. But
either way. All right. So let's see more about this opening night roster. I got a question about what about a guy that no one is really talking about? Maybe you guys can enlighten me on this one, but I keep forgetting he's on the team. What about Dylan Gambrell? What's the deal with this guy?
He's in Milwaukee.
Oh yeah. I don't even see him now. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't see him.
He's on an AHL deal. He was in camp on a PTO. So he's
Gotcha.
in Milwaukee with the Admirals training camp.
That's right. All right, so now let's really talk about what the people really want to talk about. That's Brady Martin. Let's all kind of give our thoughts on, do we really think that this is the right move? Not just in terms of him being in the roster, but being possibly top line. And you're seeing, I don't want to completely buy into just because they're practice rushes, if that's exactly how it's going to go. Maybe Boyd, you think for sure that's how it's going to be. But I mean, right now they're putting Ryan O'Reilly on the wing and they're putting Brady Martin on at center. And that's just throwing everybody for a loop right now. I mean, there was a post that went viral. It got thousands and thousands of retweets and likes from the World Hockey Report, where they basically called out the Preds and said, oh my God, the Preds are the worst center core that I've ever seen in my life, is basically what World Hockey Report said. And they've got a pretty big following. And then all I did was, of course, read the comments. And I mean, people are just trashing the Preds left and right about the fact that they're going to start Brady Martin at center. And then they just started talking about the rest of our centers. And they're like, I mean, you're seeing comments, and some of these are rage baiters, but they're like, I've never even heard of half these guys. And it's just like, I mean, the Preds are just the punching bag of this post by the World Hockey Report. I'll try to find the actual post, but I mean, how are we feeling, gentlemen? Max, how about you start us off? Do you really feel like Brady, not only, I always said, like, if we're going to start him, let's kind of like start him off slow, maybe even put him on the wing so he doesn't have as much pressure on him, maybe. But it seems to me like they might just throw him right in the deep end. Let's see what you're made of. How are you feeling about that, Max?
Well, I will start by saying that I'm sure a lot of those people who you've seen comment about why are we putting Brady Martin up so high are probably the same people who have trashed us for not relying on our rookie guys in the past. So choose one end of the conversation, not the other. But anyway, I mean, honestly, I'm certainly excited that it's happening. Ultimately, it's a great sign from what we've seen at this point. And ultimately, you have, as we've talked about, you have to reward, good performances and that. And if Brady Martin's truly been doing well at practice, then I'm fully on board, at least trying it out. There's really, with the way the Preds are constructed this year, there's really nothing to lose. No one's expecting this team to go anywhere near Cup, let alone the playoffs. So, I mean, there's, again, you got nothing to lose by at least trying. And if it doesn't work, okay.
Well, timeout. Let me say one thing. There is something to lose, and it's called a head coach's job, possibly. If they flame out for another 68 points this season, I don't see Andrew Burnett surviving that. But other than that, you're right. There's nothing to lose.
That's fair. But even then, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not sure. Brunette might have a tiny bit more leeway because of the roster this year is, everyone knows the roster is not very good. In terms of at least proven talent wise. But either way, I mean, again, I'm totally fine to try it out for a few games, see how it goes. I'm not going to say I think it's going to go great just because, obviously he's never played an NHL game in his life. And, it's hard to, trust a rookie in the top center position. So it just feels like at some point or another, it's going to come back down to earth, and he's going to end up probably playing a lesser role, maybe being sent back. He can't go to Milwaukee, but being sent back to the minor leagues or whatever. But anyway, like I'm glad. I'm very glad. It's that he's done as well as he has, and that he's getting this opportunity. One thing I also do like about it is that last year when like right after Trotz went out and signed Stamkos, Marchessault, Brady, Shea, he talked about how he wants a roster to be like top 6 proven guys, like third line rookies and fourth line kind of your grinders. Now you're seeing younger guys up in the top 6, and maybe that's kind of due to just the construction of the roster, not having enough proven bodies to be in the top 6. But there is probably also some adjustment on Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett's mind to think, okay, we got to give these guys more of a chance that we have if they want to grow. So I think there's a lot of ways you can argue this, but overall, I think it's a good sign. What we have to know now, you can only go off of what you know. I am very intrigued to see. Now, one thing I'll say, and I'm not going to say too long on this because I might be getting a little ahead of myself. One thing that we, like you said a second ago, that really intrigues me is Ryan O'Reilly on the wing, and it's how is it going to work out when Luke Evangelista comes back? Yeah. Now, here's the thing with the Sage Ryan. Of course, Ryan O'Reilly has been a top 6 center his whole career, and that's his identity. But with where the stage he is in his career right now, maybe when Evangelista is like ready to play, you put him in that top wing spot and maybe move O'Reilly down to the third line with Marchessault and Bunting. I mean, I don't think that's that outlandish of to run that third line.
Well, and then you got to figure out where do you put Eric Halla. I mean, you're
fourth line, and then you scratch McCarron, or
you're shuffling a lot of deck chairs here, which again, it's a good problem to have. Like if it all works out, but that's going to be really strange. No one predicted, if it actually comes true, no one predicted Ryan O'Reilly being on the wing.
Trotz did talk about it a little last year when he was talking about move to the trade deadline. He said one thing he did say is you could see Ryan O'Reilly on the wing. It never happened, but he has talked about it before.
All right. Good point. And then also, just how about Jonathan Marchessault taking on what that line seems to be building a lot of chemistry already? That could be a fun line of Bunting, Halla, and Marchessault.
I really do.
And that takes off pressure off Marchessault. He can just kind of like play his game down there. And I mean, that's a veteran line. And those are guys that know how to play with.
It's a pain to play against, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, so that could work out great for you. I mean, I'm telling you right now, guys, I feel like the X factor is if you can get that second line buzzing. And nothing has changed, even with Brady Martin in here for what's likely just going to be 9 games. With all of that said, we're not talking about him right now because there's so many other things going on. But I'm going to just bring it up again. It's so obvious. Fedor Svechkov has got to be ready to take on that role that it didn't work out for Tommy Novak. Now you're going to see if Svechkov can take it. And if he delivers, then suddenly a lot of other things become a little bit easier when it comes to moving pieces around because you don't want to put Stamkos in a center position. He really doesn't need to be there anymore at the center position. No. And so if you can leave Stamkos on the second line wing, which was always the most desirable spot for him, and Svechkov it can play that well, then that's a dream scenario for me to have a second line with Svechkov just really holding down the fort there. And then you can figure out because unless it just something crazy happens and Martin just completely goes off, takes the NHL by storm. Suddenly they're talking about Martin. Oh, why did we overlook this guy in terms of talking about rookie of the year projections?
Right.
You know, it's very unlikely that's going to happen, but then that's going to be a center that moves out. And so then suddenly you've got to, how do you leave Ryan O'Reilly at a wing once Martin is out of the picture?
You wouldn't.
You would not know.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly.
No chance.
Yeah.
The
So go
only
ahead,
reason
Boyd.
he's on the wing right now, there's a couple things to consider that I think, everyone loves to overreact to the opening night roster and kind of say, well, this is what it's going to be for 82 games.
Fun.
And it's fun, and it's kind of vision casting a little bit, which we all love to do. If the best case scenario is that Martin is great and earns a full season in the NHL, and Svechkov holds his own and mans that number 2 center spot, hey, you've solved a tremendous problem real quick. In a more than likely scenario, what's going to be game 1 probably won't even be the same on game 20, because Martin will, Martin will have his 9 games. He'll probably, it probably won't be 9 games in a row. He'll probably play 3, sit a couple, play 3 or more, sit a couple, so around about game 15, Nashville will have to make a choice of whether they send him back or not. And if you think about it, let's assume he goes back to juniors. Ryan O'Reilly slides back to center, and either Marchessault comes up to the top line, or the guy who was absolutely the darling of training camp and was looking like a dude who was ready to explode at the NHL level, Matthew Wood, comes back from injury and just drops right into that top line right wing. And because him and Forsberg were clicking through camp, like they knew where each other were going to be. They had things off and running. So there's definitely some interesting variability that's going to come up over, the next, probably 3 to 4 weeks. But, it's the center position game 1. Yeah, doesn't look fantastic. And let's be fair. The reason O'Reilly is next to Martin is so that, if they have a defensive draw, it's going to be O'Reilly that takes it. It's not going to be Brady Martin taking a third period defensive zone faceoff. Right. They're going to rely on Ryan O'Reilly for that. Right. That's what the Predators have done for years, especially with their, third and fourth lines, is have 2 centers, so that depending if it's on the right side or the left side, you can put the right person out there. Colton Sissons played wing and took a ton of faceoffs. So, it's not an unheard of thing. It's just, who do you want driving play from the center position? It's realistically, it's probably Brady Martin, but from a defensive responsibility perspective, it's going to be O'Reilly.
And like you said, everyone likes to overreact and get crazy over the opening night roster, because we're all hungry for hockey. We're all excited that it's finally happening. I felt like this offseason was felt longer than it normally does, and that's probably because it was just such a bad season last year that we almost,
because Nashville was out of it in February.
Right. Yeah. So that definitely played mind tricks on me, that it felt longer than it normally does. But so even World Hockey Report comes out and says nothing against him, but this is probably the worst group of centers in the NHL.
Stop the screen right there. I love that comment. Quote, Preds are trash. They need to rebuild. Preds, put 2 young centers in to start the season. LOL, Preds are the worst centers in the league. Exactly what I said a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So Mac the Knife 247 on X. Let's give you a shout out. Hope you're watching, but yeah, basically calling out the hypocrisy of this tweet.
Thank you. Reading my mind.
But yeah, people jumped all over this. I mean, this has 1.1 thousand likes, which is a pretty big post there. But like other comments here, they're rotating O'Reilly and Martin between center and wing. He's going to get those 9 games and head back to the OHL. unless he proves he can keep it up. But yeah, just looking it through here, most people kind of see it for what it is. They're making room for Martin to get his 9 games, and then he's going to the OHL. And then he can't come back up until this season's over. So it's not like it's not like Joakim Kimmel where you can just move him back and forth and as you wish, which we don't want that to happen. But I'm just saying, like, it's a very unique situation when you're dealing with an 18-year-old player.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's get on to the next segment here. First of all, any thoughts, guys, about this matchup against the Blue Jackets? The Blue Jackets are, and I talked with Mark Shag about this at the beginning of this episode, and I asked him kind of like, what the overall sentiment is about the Blue Jackets, and they're feeling like they can definitely be a playoff team this year. That's the goal, and not only that, but also the realistic goal, I should say. But not only that, they're fast. They've got a good young team. They've got a lot of guys who can get up and down the ice and score fast, and that scares me as a Preds fan because that's usually what burns this team is they get beat on those 2-on-1 breaks. They hang UC Saros out to dry, and the rest is usually history. That's what happened a lot last year. But I feel better about this year's Preds defensive core, and I even without Haig, I still feel a lot better about this year's group of defensemen. But that's what scares me the most about this matchup, just looking at it on paper, is Columbus has got speed. They've got talent. They can put up goals in a hurry. They ended last season off very impressive, missed the playoffs by 2 points in the wild card race. Finished the season last year with a 6-game winning streak. The thing that you can exploit in this matchup with Columbus is they're not settled on who's going to start net. So I think Nashville can also put up some goals in this game, and their defense is very in question. Mark admitted that. Mark said, "Look, this team's got to prove that they can actually be a good defensive team. That's what burned them last year." And so, and also Mark was talking about how the Blue Jackets didn't really make too many changes this past year. I also picked his brain about Dante Fabro. And I made sure Mark promised me that they're taking good care of Dante Fabro up in Columbus. Right. He said they are. He said they're taking good care of Dante, and I appreciate that. But this matchup does scare me in terms of I could see Columbus jumping on Nashville early because they got the speed. Nashville better come out they have no excuse to come out flat-footed. It's the season opener at home after you just did what you did last year. No excuse to come into this game flat-footed. You better come out playing like everything's on the line. And I think Columbus has speed to burn. But I think that we can score some goals as well. So that's how I feel about it. I think it could be a high-scoring game, possibly maybe like a 4-3 final score type of idea. But I do kind of like this matchup for Nashville. I think they actually could, being at home, get off to a good start and win their first game of the year, unlike last year when they started off 0-5-0. Boyd, just looking at it on paper, how do you feel about the matchup? What do you think about Columbus this year?
Well, I mean, it's a lot better than having to play Dallas in Dallas for opening night and having to run your backup goaltender out at the last minute because Saros got sick the day of the game.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
Yep.
So, at the very least, the circumstances are much improved. But I mean, in terms of the matchup, I mean, you're absolutely right. The Preds are going to have to take care of the puck, especially through the neutral zone. You really don't want, the guys like, Kent Johnson or Kirill Marchenko, flying down off of turnovers on odd man rushes. That is not a good place to end up. But if you can get past, working through the top pair of Werenski and Fabro and kind of, for lack of a better description, I mean, we are in playoff baseball. If you can get to their defensive bullpen, you've got some chances to make some plays. And, there is more speed in the Preds lineup today than there was at the start of last season. Yeah. They'll be probably better equipped to skate with a team like Columbus. It's just, can you avoid, especially what we saw last season, those early crucial mistakes that just put you behind the 8 ball right from the start. They've got to, and this is not just game one, this is going to go for the entire season. They've got to avoid giving up the dumb early goal. And in the cases where they do score first, they can't turn around and immediately give that goal back. And, just avoiding those two things, like starting game one, will at least avoid that sort of feeling of, oh, here we go again. And, allow you got to build a little bit of momentum, try to build a little bit of positive vibe. And, the best way to do that is start fast, but start smart. If you just have to spend half of the first period just, making the easy play, dump and chase, play good defense, let the game settle a bit, that's not the worst thing. And, then let the kind of home environment, home crowd, help you start to kind of, tilt the ice a little bit and create a few more plays when you have those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. How about Max? Are you feeling it's just game one, so let's not get overworked about it, but just overall the opponent, I think it's a good matchup for both teams. I think it could go either way. I would call it a toss-up, honestly. Yeah. But Columbus is the type of team where if you're not disciplined in your defensive zone, they will exploit you, and they got some guys who will make you pay. And so it kind of reminds me of like just in the last few years, other fast teams that we've played in the past, like Arizona, like when they were the Arizona Coyotes, that was a team that would always burn the Preds. You would go into it thinking like, okay, we can beat the Arizona Coyotes. This team's young. They got all these young kids that, they're fast, and then like they blast us for 5 or 6 goals with their speed. I kind of look at Columbus that way as well. But you can also exploit them as well. So how are you feeling about it, Max?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty even matchup in terms of the teams on paper. I mean, honestly, there's not a ton, I could say that, would really add on to what Boyd said. I think he hit, most of it right on the head. I think, the good thing about the Preds is they are, I think, a faster team than they were last year. Granted, that's not saying much. But, I think it's a good opportunity to, reset for this team, come out, with lower expectations and hope, maybe one thing with that is they might play a little more free. Last year, you could just tell that, the inability to meet expectations weighed on this group game after game, the more they couldn't do it. And it just kept tumbling down and down, right from the start, because once the Preds, it felt like even when we knew we were 0-2, it kind of had that oh no feeling, like what's going on.
Well, the difference is night and day, and I'm glad you guys brought it up. My boy brought up Dallas last year to open up the season. First of all, I remember I was hunkered down. That was down here in Florida. That was when Hurricane Milton had just ripped through my area, and so I was staying in a hotel room, and I figured out a way to pull up my laptop to watch this game. And I remember being so excited because I was like, God, the last 2 days have been hell. Like I was like, I just want to watch hockey. I'm so excited. And I got it on my laptop. And and what's crazy about that game is they almost came back and won that game.
Yeah. And Stamkos hit a post at the end of the game.
Yeah. Yep. And then, but then let's not forget, guys, what happened in game 2 of the season. They got goalied by the Detroit Red Wings. And so that was just so deflating to lose that game. And then it just spiraled out of control, and you're 0-5-0.
And that's a whole nother point you just made about getting goalied. And I've said before on this episode, and Boyd, I know you've said many times on Twitter articles, whatnot, they could not possibly have a worse finishing percentage than last year. That's got to get better. There's no way that stays as bad.
Yeah, the expected goal differential, I've brought it up many times, is insane if you look it up on Money Puck. The expected goal differential, they were not only
not even expected goal, just goal differential. They were minus 60.
But the next closest, the next closest team on that the next worst team on that list is like last time I checked was like way ahead of them.
I think we did on the last episode.
Gap was insane.
Like such a gap.
It was crazy. Yeah. So
it was crazy.
But we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about the matchup. It should be fun. I hope fans show up and just. I know they're frustrated, but
I'm going to be there.
They're kind of getting
what
they wanted. They're kind of getting what they wanted. So now they gotta, I know they're not a huge portion of the fans are not happy with upper management and Burnett being back, but you got to come out and support this team because they do got a lot of exciting long-term future players. And you do feel like there is a good buzz going on right now. I think these veterans have a lot to prove that when it comes, they're the ones that really have more to prove to me than the younger players do. The younger players, they're going to make mistakes. They're not, I can show patience there. I'm not unrealistic. I don't expect all these young players to just jump right in and start being, 20 goal scorers and light the world on fire. They're going to make mistakes. And we're going to have to live with those mistakes. We might lose some games because of some of those mistakes. That's what happens when you get younger. I'm looking at these veterans. They got to show that last season was just incredibly bad luck and fortune for a lot of players. A lot of veterans had such individually bad years that it's like it can't possibly happen again that way. And so my counterpoint to that is, they're not all going to be that bad again from the veteran players. So it's interesting if you look at, let's just take Stamkos and Marchessault. If Stamkos and Marchessault are just 20% better, like that's not a whole lot.
Right.
You look at their counting stats, just 20% better. Marchessault goes up to 67 points. That feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Stamkos goes over 30 goals. That feels pretty good. Maybe he doesn't get back to 4.
He put up 14 power play goals last year. People seem
he was tied for he was tied for 5th in the NHL in power play goals. So, he gets back over 30. Maybe he doesn't get back to 40, but he's 35. Like if he's scoring 30 goals at 35 years old, hey, we're good.
And I've also shared this stat a bunch as well. He had one of his lowest shooting outputs of his entire NHL career last year. He didn't shoot nearly. I'm talking about shot attempts, not even shots on goal. I'm just talking about shooting in general. He deferred a lot. Me and you have talked about this before, Boyd, in a previous episode. I don't want to do revisionist history here too much, but yeah. So there's a lot that you can fix this year that should be a lot more straightforward. But he's going to need line mates who can get him the puck, and that's again comes back to Fedor Svechkov. If they do end up playing together to open up this season, then that's going to be the onus is going to be on Fedor Svechkov to play that center role, and we'll see how it goes. But let's get the last segment of episode 278 in, and that is real quick rapid fire. I'm going to put me and Max have our division winners and Stanley Cup winner and conference winners.
You're not going to like this, a lot of you.
And me and Max shared each other's earlier today, but we'll give a chance for Boyd to put his up as well. But as I get that ready, I want to let Boyd first share his. How about you start with the Central Division while I pull the screens up? Who do you got winning the Central Division this year, Boyd?
Yeah, as it stands today, I think it'll come down to the end. It'll be close. But as of right now, I've got Colorado.
That's what
they look so good, and I think the really big difference maker for Colorado right now is having a healthy and up to speed Val Nichushkin. Like such a difference maker for that team, and if he's healthy and running, that just makes such a big difference for them. And they've got to be unhappy about how the last the last year went and how that turned out getting into the playoffs. So I have to imagine they're going to be fired up. And, I think they'll be challenged by Dallas. They'll be challenged by Winnipeg, but ultimately I think it's Colorado that takes the
Don't
Central.
be surprised if Utah makes things interesting.
So we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement on Colorado winning the Central Division, which is I figured one of us would have broken away and picked Dallas at least, but we're all taking Colorado.
The only thing for Dallas, the only thing for Dallas for me right now as it compares to Colorado is Ottinger versus Scott Wedgwood.
That's a good point. I was just about to say that my trust in Ottinger is lowered a little bit.
He didn't have as great a year, but
he's great when he's locked in, but I don't know if I trust him in clutch playoff moments as much as I thought I
did. Neither does Pete DeBoer.
Yeah. All right. Let's go through. All right. So I got him on the screen here for YouTube viewers. Also, if you're listening to our audio version of our episode, video is so much better. Hit us up on YouTube, and you can also watch live streams every now and then, and you can comment and tell us how wrong we are sometimes. But let's see. All right, Pacific Division. We have a little me and Max have a little disagreement here. Max is going with Vegas to win the Pacific Division.
Yep.
I'm going with Edmonton. Connor McDavid just got his 2-year deal. First of all, guys, how about that? Hey, my respect meter for Connor McDavid.
Oh man,
just multiplied it by like 1,000. That he took significantly less money. He did take the 2-year deal, so he's not fully bought in to Edmonton. But
he is giving them 3 years.
No, exactly.
They've got 3 years, or he's leaving.
He's like saying, "I will take less, and I will do this with you, but you have a window, and if you don't do it here, I will take my talents elsewhere where I can win."
He takes a $12.5 million AAV, which for perspective, I mean, the way these contracts are starting to blow up right now, you just saw Jack Eichel get his deal. You saw Kirill Kaprizov get his deal. He's the highest paid now, AAV wise. And you see Connor McDavid take what he took. Go ahead, Boy, with your point. Sorry.
Well, and there's also, Connor McDavid, he's got this year, he's got the next 2. Let's be fair. He's going to, in some form, be a free agent in 3 years with the cap will be what? 115, 120? Oh, yeah. Like he will get 25. He will get the equivalent of this 2-year contract on his next deal. So,
I'm still very, very respectful of him taking that deal, though.
I still think he'll take less.
Loyalty is not dead in sports. Loyalty is not completely dead in sports anymore.
Well, not only that, I'm sure he'll take less wherever he goes next. He's like, that proves he cares about winning more than money.
Okay. So we're just doing division winners right now. We're not doing anything. We're about to put our Western and Eastern Conference predictions as well for the playoffs and the Stanley Cup winners. We're just doing division winners right now. So I got Edmonton. Another reason why I picked Edmonton for the division is I actually think Stuart Skinner is going to be much better this year than what the whole reputation of him is. I actually don't think he's as bad as some people think he is. He kind of impressed me last year in the playoffs, actually. And I think he could be the answer to Edmonton, who's always been a team who has a great team but couldn't figure out the goalie position. So my stock is a little higher than some people might have it on Stuart Skinner.
Maybe not a hot take.
Yeah, do your
maybe not a hot take. Connor Ingram's the starting goalie in Edmonton by the Olympic break.
Yeah, I could see it.
I would like that. I'm always cheering for Connor Ingram. Trust me. So who's your division winner, Boyd, for Pacific?
In the Pacific? Yeah, I mean, similarly in the Central, it's not going to be LA. No, they're going to lose to Edmonton in the first round again.
Right.
I think, it very similar to the Central. I think Vegas will give them a run for their money. But I think with Vegas, ultimately, the loss of Alex Pietrangelo will probably hurt more than they realize. I do think Edmonton probably wins the division, but it'll be close. I think Vegas, with the amount of offensive firepower they have, they do probably have a little more steady goaltending today with Aiden Hill. But ultimately, I think Edmonton wins the division, but probably within a 3 to 4 point gap between them and Vegas.
I look at the Pacific Division, and I just going into the season, and obviously things change, and there's always a couple surprise teams. But just looking at it, Pacific Division looks very, very top heavy. I don't see a lot of teams that super impress me. I think Vancouver is on their way down. Anaheim is a team that could surprise some people. I could see them sneaking into a wild card position. They got a lot of good young talent. They've been climbing their way up methodically lately. But overall, the Pacific Division, full body of work, doesn't really impress me all that much. And that's another reason why I found it pretty easy to pick Edmonton. But, of course, Vegas is up there as well. All right, let's get to the Eastern Conference. And let's start with the Metropolitan Division. And me and Max both are in agreement with the New Jersey Devils, a team that kind of underperformed a little bit last year. Everyone thought last year was their year where they were really going to break out, but I'm sticking with the Devils. I look at their roster, I look at their young talent, and I'm thinking this is their year where they're going to really take control of that division. I got the Devils.
Healthy Jack Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Yeah, it's kind of the Devils with a bullet. If they're healthy, they're going to be really, really tough to stop. Yeah. But, if they lose a Hughes, lose a Hamilton, if Markstrom goes down for anything longer than 6 minutes, they're going to be in trouble. But, and, I don't want to write the eulogy for the Rangers yet, but they looked pretty lifeless last night. Against what you would assume to be a pretty subpar Penguins team.
One of the worst in the league.
Yeah, the Rangers did not look good.
And you look at that division, you wonder, you look at a team like Washington, how much longer can Ovechkin keep doing what he does? But that team could be okay. But the Islanders are figured to be a team kind of like the Preds in the West, where they got a lot of work to do. Philly is down there. And then we come back to Carolina. I mean, I feel I'm not picking Carolina this year. I think the last 2 years that I've done these preseason predictions on this podcast, I've picked Carolina, and every time I'm wrong. So I'm giving up on Carolina, not as a good team, and they're still going to be up there, but I'm not picking them anymore. And watch, this will be the year they win it all.
I think they've peaked, honestly, with their current core at least.
It'll be interesting to see what's different with Nikolai Ehlers getting, presumably, top line minutes and not being kind of weirdly buried in the lineup like he was in Austin and Winnipeg. But yeah, I'm sort of on I need to see something different from Carolina. If they're going to continue to play the same way, do the same things, their goalie tandem of Anderson and Kochetkov just doesn't do it for me. They've got a ton of really, really good players. It's just, I agree, their ceiling just doesn't seem to be that high. Unless they will be one of the teams to watch in terms of, the next star that comes available, because that seems to be their, always in forever pursuit, which they achieved for about 6 minutes last season, until Mikko Rantanen told them he wouldn't sign there. But yeah, I mean, I'm sort of on until I see something different for them, I just don't see their ceiling as high as New Jersey.
And I'm not just saying this just because we're playing them tomorrow night, but watch out for Columbus. They could be a top 3 team in that division, I think, if their goalie situation is figured out as well. That's the one thing I feel like is holding them back. with Elvis Merzlikins, and can he take over that throne in net? But I feel like for the Devils, this is their year where they can take over that division. It doesn't look like an overly daunting division to me. And then we go to the Atlantic.
It is definitely there for the taking.
And when we go to the Atlantic, I feel like it's the exact opposite of the Metropolitan Division. I think the Atlantic is a freaking gauntlet. When you look at some of these teams, you look at Toronto, Florida, Ottawa's coming at you. You got Tampa, they might not be a dynasty anymore, but Tampa's still a very well constructed team. And then you got Montreal, who's one of the best young cores in the league right now. They are the youngest team in the league right now, if I remember correctly. Average age of roster opening night. I think Montreal's the youngest team in the league, but all the talent in the world. They did lose their first game of the year, but still, they just lost tonight, actually. Montreal did. But either way, that is a gauntlet of a division, in my opinion, is the Atlantic Division. I think they're the best top to bottom division out of all four divisions, in my opinion. But so this was a tough prediction for me. But I took Tampa, and the reason why is I think top to bottom, they're going to put some things together. I think Vasilevsky is going to be much better this year. Everyone forgets, so UC Saros had a down year. So did Andre Vasilevsky. I mean, he did not have an up to par season by his standards. So I think he's going to bounce back. I still have a lot of respect for the veteran core that the Lightning have. I have a ton of respect for John Cooper as one of the best coaches in the league. So I think that team's going to come down to the last couple of weeks. So really making me predict this, making any of us predict who's going to win the Atlantic is like, let's just go ahead and pick some lottery balls and see who wins. But I'm going to take Tampa. I am. I'm going to take them to win the division. But suspensefully speaking, that doesn't mean I think they're going to go much past that. We'll just leave it at that. But Max, you take the Toronto Maple Leafs. Explain your choice there.
You know, it kind of goes back to what I was thinking about the Pacific in a similar light with, because with Pacific, it's between Edmonton and Vegas. Here it's between, Tampa and Toronto. I don't think Ottawa and Montreal. I don't think Montreal and Ottawa are there yet. Florida's too injured, I think, to take the regular season. But honestly, I know it sounds kind of dumb for this to reason this way, but like, I kind of thought is like something about like teams like Tampa and Edmonton, they don't always perform their best during the regular season for one reason or another. And it's usually like teams like Toronto is seems like a better regular season teams in some ways. Vegas was won that division many times. Well, especially with Edmonton, they got the goaltending is a question and depth is an issue. Tampa, I guess maybe for them as their roster aged a little bit more, and maybe in the regular season when it's a big speed game, it could hurt them a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I know it's not the best reason. That's kind of why it was, but it kind of was sort of like flip a coin, if you know what I mean.
That's a tough division to call. Who do you got, Boyd, to win the Atlantic Division?
Yeah, I mean, as of today, I would probably go Tampa. I think Tampa is going to be a little bit on a quest to prove themselves they very much had a couple of years where they did not care about the regular season at all. It was just get to the playoffs and we'll turn it on. And last year they got steamrolled. And I think they're going to be, a little more motivated to prove that kind of they're not done yet. I do think Toronto will be right there in the mix with them. The only thing that worries me about Toronto is goalie depth. While Anthony Stolarz has been a phenomenal goalie the last couple of seasons, he's still never started, I think, more than 30 or 32 games in a season. And then their backup, Joseph Woll, is away from the team for personal reasons. There's no timetable for him coming back. It's just, that's a lot of uncertainty at the goalie position. And, if there's like, as they stand right now, if Anthony Stolarz got hurt, Caden Primo, who just got waived by Carolina, becomes their starter. And that's just that's a little
Toronto.
bit.
They did win tonight, but I just don't trust Toronto.
Yeah, they are a very good team, and in the aftermath of Mitch Marner leaving, I think they did a really good job using that cap space to build a more complete roster. So they may be more of, somewhat ironically, given what they've done in the last decade, basically. They may be more built for the playoffs in that they've got a bigger, more physical roster. Maybe there's not quite as much top end scoring, but they're going to be able to grind out more games than they have in the past. And what that probably comes down to is if their goaltending is healthy in the playoffs, they're going to be really dangerous. But if they don't have a goalie who can start 45, 50, 55 games, that may make winning the division difficult.
And also, again, these teams are probably going to beat up on each other when they do play each other in this division. Again, I think this is a very well-balanced top to bottom division. So that's going to be fun to watch that one as well. I feel like that division always comes down to like the last 2 or 3 games of the season. So in terms of who finishes 1 through 3, sometimes it's like that close. So I could see that definitely happening again. And I could even see that division having both wildcard teams possibly. So now let's get to real quick. Let's get to who me and Max have as our conference champions and Stanley Cup winners. There you have it. I've got the Avs winning the West. I got the Devils winning the East. And I've got the Avalanche putting it all together this year to win the Stanley Cup. Max has a repeat.
Yep.
Back-to-back champs. He called it wash, rinse, and repeat in our group text.
Yeah.
He's got the Panthers beating the Oilers again. Oh, my gosh. Edmonton fans, I'm really, really actually might feel kind of sorry for them if they get the old Buffalo Bills treatment from the early 90s when they went to 3 straight Super Bowls and lost with Jim Kelly at quarterback. That's basically what that would be. That would be the hockey equivalent of that. But you got the Panthers going back to back to back because they will. Hey, I'll give you that.
They'll have again.
Yeah.
And
so, go ahead.
Ultimately, those are just the 2 teams I trust most. The way I kind of think of it is like this offseason, we saw some changes, nothing really seismic though. And with Edmonton, they still got the same superstars. McDavid's still McDavid. Draisaitl's still Draisaitl. If Zach Hyman's healthy the whole time, that helps him out even more. Like you said, Boyd, maybe Connor Ingram is their starter. He becomes a better goaltender than Stuart Skinner is. I think Edmonton, I still think they're high-end talents enough, with the given their path. I think Colorado probably will give them a run for their money. I could easily see that going either way, but I think I trust them over, the teams in, the West. They've seemed like one of those teams lately that kind of comes on around playoff time and performs their best then. And then with Florida, what more needs to be said? They 2-time Stanley Cup champions. They're high-end talent, their depth, they got everything. And it just if these teams do meet again, I would really hope Edmonton finally gets it done, but it's just hard for me to see it happening with just knowing what Florida is and that they're kind of an impossible team. They're an impossible team to play against when they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. All right, Boyd, give us your conference champions and your Stanley Cup winner. Well,
I'll go a little slightly off the board, just, to mix it up and have a little fun.
Utah Mammoths are winning the Stanley Cup in 2026. Go for it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That would make for a great story. I'm going to use the, Edmonton and Florida have both played an unbelievable amount of hockey the past 3 seasons. And you're already seeing it. I mean, Florida's banged up. You know, I haven't seen what the result was from Evan Rodriguez opening night, but he got hurt, didn't look very good at the time. You know, Matthew Tkachuk is out until probably the Olympics. Alexander Barkov is going to miss probably the entire regular season. You know, they've got a ton of talent, but man, that's a lot to overcome. And similarly for Edmonton, and you know, some of their core players, you know, they're all getting a year older. You know, Connor McDavid notwithstanding, he's a space alien. But I'm gonna say, you know, just to have a little fun with it, let's go Colorado and Toronto in the final. Nathan McKinnon's going to be super motivated.
That would be a lot of fun.
You know, I think they're going to be a really, really tough out. You know, maybe they go find a goaltender at the deadline from someone who's out of contention. You know, maybe it's something weird like the Islanders are well out of it and they trade Ilya Sorokin. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I'm making stuff up. But I also do think Toronto is much more built for the playoffs in that they have guys that are bigger and more physical, but that are still functional players. You know, they're not trying to trot out Ryan Reeves for 5 minutes to be like a physical, intimidating player. Instead, they've got a guy like Dakota Joshua or Nicholas Waugh, who are, you know, big but contributing players. And, you know, it's just a much more complete team. And if their goaltending stays healthy, similar, they're going to be a really, really tough out in the playoffs. So just for fun, let's say Colorado, Toronto, and I will say Colorado wins and Nathan McKinnon gets his second Stanley Cup. And then turns around and gets paid like $19 million a season or whatever he's going to get paid next.
A Colorado-Toronto Stanley Cup final would definitely sign me up for that one. That would be a good one. All right, so there's our predictions. Take them for what you will. None of us even mentioned the Predators in that segment, and rightfully so. All right, so fun stuff there. Now we are going to wrap up this episode because Max just begged to bring back the Titans time segment tonight. And we're a little over time here, but that's okay. Because when you get the crew together, that's what happens. We always go over our time, but that's okay because no one's making us sign off right now. But we have to get Titans time in. We do. And before Max goes on his little monologue here, I got to put it on the screen because it's just so beautiful. I think that this team is going to rally and go 13-4 because of this.
Exactly.
13-4, and it's going to be because of what happened on in this very time right here. I mean, I got to put that on the screen, guys. I mean, I have to. I mean, that's going to be the number one. That's going to be the comeback story of the year. They're going to write about this in the history books for ages when the Titans win the Super Bowl.
I made a little thing. If you can see the Cardinals logo, the same thing right here. After Sunday, because they deserved it after they blew that game.
And talk about the comedy of errors that had to happen for the Titans to win. But you know what? We take it however we can get it. I mean, real quick before you go, Max, but just the snapping of the football from the center and it doinks Kyler Murray in the head. And then he acted like he was injured, like someone just took a shotgun to the face or something. And then I'm just thinking about the clown music in the background when that play happened, right. Like the old school, like da, 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 da. Like I just was like, it was so funny. And then the interception with Cam Ward, where he throws the interception, then the guy drops it, the ball bounces around, Titans player jumps on it in the end zone, and then also, of course, the Arizona running back just dropping the ball before he crossed the end zone, which would have put the game away. Just so many crazy things happened, but I also don't want to take anything away from Cam Ward because the dude did make a couple really clutch throws, especially at Calvin Ridley. So the floor is yours, Max Greenberg.
Yeah, and I'll keep this. I'll try to keep this as quick as I can. Obviously, Chad and I talked about last episode, and it didn't really change until the fourth quarter of the Arizona game. All the talk is about, when's Brian Callahan getting fired? When can this team finally, reset some way, move on from the Rand Carthon players, bring in their own new regime, blah, this and that. And that's all. That was kind of all the same talk that was going on Sunday until the fourth quarter. And then, like you said, as happy as I was about a Titans win, we cannot deny it was an otherworldly choke job by the Cardinals to just make the mistakes. I thought like the fumble off Kyler Murray's face was the least of it. Just the fumble in the end zone, then the throwing back into the end zone of the interception was insane. But, and I was, obviously, and I still very much believe that the Cardinals had to screw up as much as they did for the Titans to even have a chance. But, I was watching, last night, and obviously I know from watching the game, but I was also watching last night from the Music City Audible podcast with Justin Graver and Justin Mello, which is my favorite show to watch of the Titans right now. And they're saying, like, look, and I agree, for as much as, the Cardinals gave this game away, you got to give some credit to the Titans because Cam Ward made a ton of big plays. He was probably on pace to have his worst game, keep progressing as the game was going on. But when the fourth quarter started, he made the best plays he's made all year and came up clutch and all that. And that's really what matters. The guy made big plays. And ultimately, another thing, too, is that you look at a game like the Denver game, Titans have 4 turnovers go their way and 2 turnovers on down 6 times where they get the ball in ideal territory, only get 6 points off that, couldn't take advantage of anything. And this time they did. The Titans capitalized on it. And, of course, it all starts with their quarterback making the big plays when he had to make them. That's been Cam Ward's MO throughout his whole time, having a knack for the big moments and making the plays when it matters most. He did it there, and, that's why I left that game feeling great about Cam Ward, where he's at right now. And, I'm sure that it's still going to be contrary to our jokes a few seconds ago, I'm sure it's still going to be a bad Titans team the rest of the year. But, hey, you always want to see games like this
so good
and get it, and we did.
It's so nice for him to get that off his back, though, to get that first win.
He was so happy. You should have seen. Make sure you saw his face at the end of the game. He was smiling from.
And I appreciate the guy's accountability. I appreciate the rawness that he even said in that press conference after that loss to Houston. I appreciated that as a fan because it's more than I can say about some of the players on that team going into that game. The morale just felt so low, and it just felt like if any team was tanking, it almost felt like this team was for a second. But sometimes things happen. Teams do give away games, and that's when you got to go out and do it and take it. And I'm happy for that. They're probably still going to be right in the running for the top overall pick, or at least a top 3 pick. But I was happy to see that for sure. And we'll see what they can do with it now. Boyd, anything to put on top of the Titans time before we end episode 278?
It's comical how unbelievably bad they were through 3 quarters. They could not do anything. And, all it took was a little bit of momentum and, things started going their way. And, it's ironically kind of like the Predators last season, which was the moment they had a glimmer of hope, they just immediately threw it away. And it'll be interesting to see if the Titans can take this bit of momentum and build on it, or if they just go right back to the same things they were doing before.
I also real quick, I have no confidence in that kicker for the Titans. He almost missed that one.
Yeah.
That was close, guys. He almost missed that chip shot field goal. So
and they brought in a guy to try out today, actually.
And he missed the extra point, which would have changed the outlook.
Badly too. It was not close.
So I don't know. Look, it's the Titans. We're not expecting them to do anything special. I'm just happy to see them win. This franchise just so badly needed something good to happen for them.
One last thing I'll say is that we have a win just in time for me because I'm going to the game in Vegas this Sunday.
Which that could actually be a win too, possibly.
Yeah, that'd be great if we can get a win down there for me traveling out west.
Yeah, that's fun. Have a good time out there, man.
Absolutely.
In Vegas, that's a fun trip.
There
All
you
right,
go.
so that was Titans time with Max Greenberg. We'll bring him on for Titans time every time the Titans win, which means that we probably will not see Titans
At least
time for the rest of the season.
Hopefully two more times. Hopefully 2 more times.
I mean, if we go by that criteria, we probably won't see you again until 2026 for Titans time.
Right.
All right, I'm just kidding. But I will say, all right, Preds Blue Jackets, we're excited about it. We will get a new episode out very soon following that game. And then we're also doing our live watch parties this year. We're still hammering out when we're going to do our first one. We don't want to really promote it until we know for sure when we can do that, because when we do these live watch party episodes, it is a commitment. And me and Max want to make sure we're on the same page. And also Boyd could definitely jump in with us as well on a watch party. But we're looking at probably not until we get into November before we can really come together on our schedules to do a watch party. Because I do a full-time job where I work nights. So a lot of times I can't do the games live. But we will figure out some watch party episodes, and we will make sure we promote that and tell you all about it, because those watch party episodes are a lot of fun. And so until then, it is officially 2025-26 season for the Nashville Predators, and let's keep our chins up and let's be excited. It's a clean slate, and let's see what happens. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening to episode 278. Hit subscribe on YouTube. This has been your host, Max Greenberg, Boyd Farish, and yours truly, Chad Minton. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
You guys.